Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Aren't you?
Uh-huh. No, I am. And that's why I'm not going to miss a single golden minute of pre-show banter.
Solid gold, baby.
Not like last week. You bet your sweet honey took us.
We had a good, 10 minutes.
I know, and I missed every second of it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And the rest of the show was for nothing. Nothing good out of that at all. Crappy movie about some French comic director.
What will these people think of next?
Do you have all your tabs open?
I'm getting them open. They're happening.
What was the fantastic? It was the SNL Natalie Portman bit. Remember that video? Natalie raps.
I do not.
What?
Don't have any idea what you're talking about.
What? Oh man, this is epic. No, I'm not kidding. Hang tight. I got it. It was an SNL digital short. And those things tend to be awesome all the way around. And in this case, it was an interview with Natalie Portman. I think it was right after she did the first Star Wars thing. And she came out. It was in the same era, same season as the beep in a box.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So they were. It was great. I just put it in the magic box for you there so you can watch it. We will definitely put this in the show notes because I think it's possibly Natalie Portman's best work. No, that's awful that I said that, but it's still great. Okay, so what do we have? Let's first of all tell me where you'd like people to find you.
People can find me at Soda Creek Film on Twitter and over at Facebook at Soda Creek Film, and of course Facebook on the Movies We Like page and rashpixel.tv.
Excellent, rashpixel.tv, and at Pete Wright for Twitter. I am facebook.com/Pete Wright, but obviously the Movies We Like page at Facebook is a great place to find either of us. Make sure you subscribe to the show in iTunes, still the best way to find the show, and subscribe to it. Make sure you don't miss a single week of movie goodness from yours truly and the kindly Dr. Nelson.
Doctor of something.
Yeah, you're a doctor, as you sure are. So there we go. There's the updates. We are. Should we talk about some trailers?
We should, yeah. What do you want to start with?
Okay, it was just seconds ago we discussed this, and I've already forgotten.
We had a slew of ones that we were debating if we ever talked about on the show before.
I can't actually remember if we've talked about them, so we should likely talk about them again.
We can do just quick, quick blurbs.
Yes,
of our thoughts, just in case we've covered it before. We're not tiring our listeners out.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. I am still excited then about Now You See Me.
I'm very excited about Now You See Me.
Yes. I mean, right? That's one that just seems to be, it's likely going to be kicking us off or anchoring another series or two new series. It is both a magic series and a heist series. For us. Great heist movies.
It'll be great. It'll be a great linchpin between the two.
Yes, linchpin is what Now You See Me is. What do we know about Now You See Me?
I don't know, but all I can say is they have a perfect setup for a sequel. Now you don't.
They sure do. You want to know what's funny? I didn't even get that. Movie is directed by Louis Leterrier. Writers Ed Solomon and Boaz Yakin. Is that true?
It's good that Louis is able to direct again after the debacle with The Incredible Hulk.
Well, now, okay.
Well, you can't really pin it on him.
No, this is what I was going to say. And there is... Okay. So we've got a lot of Hulk issues. And I think he was part of the universe of Hulk issues, or it's just the universe of the studio and the IP holders not quite knowing how to handle the Hulk in cinema. And I think they finally figured it out with the Avengers. That's my take on it. But it took them 2 movies to get there. And he was just part of it. He was just a guy adding to the body of knowledge. That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
I actually quite liked that movie. Leterrier was responsible for the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk, and I really liked how they handled Edward Norton and Tim Roth. It was unfortunate that Liv Tyler was in the movie. I think she was not the right, but I loved the effects. I loved I really quite enjoyed that movie, and I think you're a little bit mean-spirited to bring it up.
No. I'm saying that only because it got such flack. I actually quite enjoyed it as well, completely not expecting to.
Yeah.
but it was there's a lot of issues with the studio, and I know Edward Norton is especially when he's on board. I don't know if he was on board that one as a producer of some sort as well, but I know his involvement in projects can lead to a lot of arguments.
Yeah,
and so I don't know if that was the cause or decisions that he was making with Lewis that ended up causing issues or what. I just know that it had quite a number of production issues when they were making that one.
Well, and what is actually, I think, potentially interesting is that we've got Louis Leterrier on Now You See Me directing Mark Ruffalo. Did you see how I did that?
Oh.
Mark Ruffalo, who played the Hulk in the, I think, probably the best version of the Hulk in the recent Avengers. Hopefully they do a spinoff with him as Bruce Banner.
Do you think his next one will have Eric Bana?
Yeah, that's right. The great Australian comic, better known for his role as Bruce the shark in Finding Nemo.
As opposed to Bruce Banner.
Yeah. I'm sure you're talking about Bruce Banner. Yes. So Now You See Me, FBI agents track a team of illusionists who pull off bank heists during their performances and reward their audiences with the money. So this also may anchor a Robin Hood themed series of us all movies that are do-gooder, rob the rich, give to the poor movies.
We can call it the 9947s.
The 9947 series, that's right. I'm very excited about this movie. Jesse Eisenberg, Mark Ruffalo, and Michael Caine in this film, along with, let's see, Morgan Freeman.
There you go.
That guy's everywhere.
It's like Christopher Nolan just dumped his cast onto this film. I wonder if we're going to have a good Michael Caine sniveling scene.
Michael Caine. It's got a great cast. Look at this. I mean, we've got Woody Harrelson, Melanie Laurent, Elias Koteas, Common. Right?
There you go. I'm in.
Yeah.
No, it looks really good.
I'm very excited about this film. So that's the one I'm stoked about. What about you? You want to see beautiful creatures? I know you're excited about that.
Richard LeGravenese is directing it, so I gotta hope that there's something in it. I don't know. It's a weird witch Twilight sort of movie, and it probably isn't worth my time. But because Richard LeGravenese is directing, he wrote The Fisher King, which I just absolutely love.
I know,
and he's written and directed a great number of other films, and some of which I definitely don't like, and some of which I do. So I'm not sure. But the trailer looks fun, and Emma Thompson, Jeremy Irons. It's got a pretty good cast.
I know, it really has a good cast. I think when you first watch the trailer, I just can't shake the feeling that I have seen this movie before every season since the launch of the CW network. Like, it's just sort of, and maybe there's a reason for that. There's certainly an audience for it. I think Twilight has certainly shown that, but Twilight and the Hunger Games, and this is sort of in that vein, and so
Yep.
I'm sure it'll hit the screen at some point over at our place. I'm not sure if I'm going to rush out for the IMAX 3D version of it, but
yeah, it'll be a Netflixer.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you're really excited about?
Melissa McCarthy does make me laugh, and she's got two movies coming out.
That's right. So the first one was that we were talking about was Heat.
The Heat.
The Heat.
Right. With Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy as a agent and a detective trying to track down a drug lord, and it looks pretty funny. It does. It's definitely a mood movie, but it looks very, very funny. And that the second one, that she's, I don't know, man, she's everywhere. She is totally Morgan Freeman. Yep.
All of a sudden is
Identity Thief
with Jason Bateman.
Yep.
Who should totally go on our list of best friends who haven't known us yet.
That's what I was totally going to say. Yep.
I'd
put Melissa McCarthy on that list too, because I bet she'd make any party better.
Totally true.
Yeah.
I'll bet she might be a total downer. Do you know what I mean?
You think?
Like she just sits in the corner with Punch and a doll that she carries everywhere.
And then she just talks to the doll.
Of a dragon. And she just talks to the dragon. Please give me confidence. But you turn the camera on and boom, she's everywhere.
She's alive.
We do need to talk about warm bodies, cold body, warm heart.
Whatever that zombie movie's called.
I'm excited about this.
I knew that this is one that you'd want to talk about one of these days. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is okay. So you've got to have eventually another. I mean, you've got to build out the sort of genre of comedy, adventurous comedy zombie films.
Yes,
there just aren't enough of those after Shaun of the Dead, and so this looks like one that where the twist is it looks like the protagozombie can actually rehabilitate.
It's another rom-zom-com.
It's a rom-zom-com. That's
from the point of the view of the zombie falling in love again.
Right. I'm very excited about this movie. It totally surprised me. I didn't see it coming. It looks like it hits February, early February.
And it's one of those ones where it's like, okay, since the zombies aren't necessarily bad guys now we have to have extra bad zombie creatures to be the bad guys.
Yes. There is actually a villain class among zombies.
That's right.
So
Good
very
times.
excited about this. So that's coming soon. Interesting documentary. Have you seen the trailer for Celebrity?
I haven't seen it.
It's a celebrity photographer, Kevin Mazur, gives an all-access pass to life behind the velvet rope and in front of the camera. And you know it's going to be good because the S in Celebrity is a $.
So you know it's going to be good, or another way for them to make even more money.
Yeah. It actually, it's just you sort of get torn between looking at the behind the scenes of the Velvet Rope Club versus, wow, everybody's complaining about paparazzi again. It's so hard to be rich and famous. So I don't know. I'm going to reserve judgment, but I'm going in a little bit bitter.
I see that.
Yeah.
I can tell.
So we got some good trailers for the week. You got to check these out. Click on
Yes.
those links. Check out those trailers.
Lots and lots of good stuff.
Good stuff. What are we talking about this week? Do you even remember? Did you watch the movie?
You know, we're plowing through this Luc Besson series with the next in our series, Léon.
We're plowing through it. We can't get through it fast enough.
Like a snowplow, I'm making my way through it so I can get from here to there. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
That is terrible. All right. I am very excited to hear you talk about this movie. And first of all, what version did you watch?
I watched the extended edition.
Okay.
The longer version, the international cut, whatever you want to call it. Although I guess it's not really the director's cut. He said the shorter version is the director's cut.
Right. He says the longer version is the long version.
He coined that so well.
He coined that term. There must be it must be lost in translation.
I think it is.
In French, it's really quite beautiful. So
listen, we love France. Let all listeners know.
we do. We've even coined a term of art in French in our glossary. You should go check it out. See if you can pick it out. It's actually in French.
That's true.
Here's the thing. I like this movie a lot better than Nikita.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I after watching Nikita last week, I was like, oh, this one is better than I remember. I think it's probably better than any of his other movies. And then I watched this one again and I go, okay, I was wrong. I had this one. I don't know where my mind took this one, but it went to a place that was worse than it actually was. So I enjoyed it actually quite a bit.
I'm glad to hear that. I am really glad to. I feel like I feel a little bit redeemed. The Professional is it is an English language film, although there is an accent aigu in the title, Léon.
Although
So
not in the actual title sequence.
Not in the title sequence. That's true. It's like
It's just said Léon.
Léon, which doesn't sound like a glamorous hitman.
No, it really doesn't.
It sounds like a clerk. This is Léon, the professional. It is Jean Reno as the titular character. He is a cleaner or an assassin, and he is he plays a really, really interesting character. He works for the Italian mafia in Little Italy, and he cleans up messes. And ends up being sort of a Batman character for the mafia. And you know what I mean? Like there is this mystique about him, but we experience Léon from from a much more sort of intimate perspective in our relationship with the character. We don't, we see the action sequences and the cleaning sequences that are. Well, we'll talk about kind of how those are handled shortly, but what we get, the relationship we build with Léon is one that gives us this image of him being a very simple person, if not a simpleton.
That's what I was about to say. Simple, almost to the point of being a simpleton.
Yes, he has other people handling his money. He has other people handling his weapons. And when he is confronted by this 12-year-old Natalie Portman, playing the character of Mathilda, who has just lost her family in what they both witness as a massive assassination in a gun or in a drug disagreement, he is confronted with this very adult situation that challenges his otherwise quite youthful sort of cognitive processing.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that really interesting. Léon, I kept seeing these sort of parallels with Léon and Driver. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's actually a really good parallel. It's very much the same sort of person. I mean, the type of person. Type of person, yeah.
This was, when we talked about Driver from the film Drive, Ryan Gosling's character, it was that same sort of thing where you have this person who exists in this world in which they are exquisitely well equipped to do one thing, whether it's drive in extreme circumstances or clean up and kill people. Like that's Léon's life. It's all he does, and he does so with incredible efficiency. And this is him being challenged in a way that not only shakes up his personal sort of handling of life and his daily sort of processes and all the accommodations that he has brought into his life to actually handle living and force him into this sort of new place. I think I think Jean Reno, first of all, handles this really well. I really like the way he plays this character, and I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure if that's him being an exceptionally talented actor.
I would agree with you. It's the role, the design of the role doesn't give him a whole lot to do other than just kind of be present in a very quiet way.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's not like he's doing, what Gary Oldman does in this film, which is a complete 180. His role is very simple, very quiet, and you're right. I don't think he had to put a lot out there to bring it out. But I thought he did a great job with it, and it's obviously been a mark for him that's gotten him a lot of attention and a lot of other roles.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He sets, and I think this really is maybe this is, I spoke incorrectly, because maybe the artistry here of his performance is that he sets and maintains the emotional sort of character baseline for this film. And around him and around his sort of simple reactions to extreme circumstances, whether it's in his apartment or in the multitude of apartments that he and Mathilda sort of explore, to the, sort of the action sequences, what he is doing is providing this really stable baseline for these other characters to fling themselves around.
Mm-hmm.
Even Mathilda and Portman's portrayal of Mathilda is this, wonderfully sort of spazzy, way too advanced for her age girl of 12 who declares that she wants to be a cleaner too. She wants to follow in his footsteps, and he gets to deal with this. And as you say, Gary Oldman is in every way the opposite of Léon in this, and provides the sort of the baseline for the extreme.
Yeah, it really does. It's in every way that Léon is almost of a young mind, even though, like he says, actually, he has that great line later in the film where she's talking about how she's already matured. She just has to get older. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm already old. I just have to, grow up a little more.
Right.
So he already acknowledges he's of this kind of, he has this like not nubile, but just a young mind. And I mean, he's
that's what they say about that Jean Reno. He's a leader of nubile actors.
But I mean, we see him going and enjoying, and almost like giddily laughing with glee as he watches Gene Kelly in It's Always Fair Weather, and he has this connection with the plant, who he says is his best friend. It's like he's a child. The way that he is managed by Danny Aiello's character, which is such a kind of it's one of those relationships that you watch on film and you just want to scream at Léon to get with it, because he's so being taken, and it's frustrating. So all of those things, and then you see Gary Oldman, who's so corrupt, so he's so good at sniffing anything out. I mean, he literally sniffs out things. He's so dark, he's so twisted, he's so wise to the ways of everything, and just evil. And it is such an interesting difference between the two.
It is a fascinating fascinating pairing of these sort of kind of equally eccentric energies.
Not to mention the interesting notion that Besson is playing with in this script, that our protagonist, the person we're following, is an assassin killing people for money. Technically what you'd usually call a bad guy. And the antagonist is a DEA agent, somebody who typically should be stopping people from selling drugs and all of that. And he's our bad guy, and he's typically somebody who would be more on the good side. So it's interesting how he has flipped those, and how the DEA agent is this corrupt person, while this assassin is this oddly moral character who saves a young girl and has his code of ethics and everything. It's interesting the way that he's flipped that, and he plays with that throughout the film.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm really glad you said that. It's sort of, because to me, I mean, you as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, gosh, he's really put sort of the center of gravity in this film on sort of the scale of good bad. He's the center of gravity is so bad. Yeah. That this assassin becomes the good guy, and is looking to sort of speak truth to power against the power that exists in this corrupt police department.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. That's a fascinating notion, and I really like the way they do it, and particularly that Jean Reno plays this guy who is ultimately a hero, the very simple sort of thug hero. That makes it that much more interesting to watch, leading to, I think, one of the, it's got to be one of the top 5 death scenes. And I haven't actually written them out, but as I'm watching the assassination of Léon at the end, I think that was so beautifully handled, first of all, and sort of architected by Besson. And because of the relationship that we've built with Léon through the course of this movie, I think it makes it just plain painful for me to watch him die.
Yeah.
Particularly the actual gunshot. I think that is one of the best sort of 4 seconds in this film. So,
I'd say there's 2 moments like that really stand out with me, that I really found myself tipping my hat to Besson and to Thierry Arbogast, the director of photography. One is that moment at the end that you're talking about, that is just so beautiful, the way that we see that gunshot happen. It's so painfully beautiful. The other is heartbreakingly beautiful and much warmer, obviously. But it's when we're looking at Mathilda as she's she's just realized what's happened in her apartment. She comes down to his apartment, and we almost see from his point of view, or from the point of view of the door, as we see her face. And it's the same thing. It's almost like, but it's another thing that they do with the light, and the way that all of a sudden it opens up, and you see everything brighten up, and you see her relief as he's kind of welcoming her into his place. And it's amazing, but just the way that they shot that, I think, it's really stunning.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That was another highlight for me of this film, and it is one of those perpetual highlights, because I find myself getting the same physical response when I watch those scenes. Because in that sequence in particular, you're dealing with the pain of her, of the sort of goon standing outside of the door of the crime scene, where the police have just annihilated her entire family, including her 4-year-old little brother. And she's standing there. We're seeing from Léon's perspective, or I should say a side shot of Léon as he's looking through the peephole through his door, and she's standing there. And that's kind of the perspective that you get. You kind of get this blown out, sort of warped fisheye of her crying, saying over and over, "Please open the door, please open the door." And when he opens the door, the feeling that I get, it's like my chest opens up. You know, that feeling, like you're filled with just this light as you see the light kind of cross her face. And I think you're absolutely right. That's another sort of half minute of real genius filmmaking.
It's beautiful. It really is.
Now, what's your impression of the action sequences? When we talked about the movie last week of Nikita, there was this. I think we both walked away feeling like the sort of cartooniness of the action sequences did not play well in this movie, and often the movie ended up with sort of this cheeky sense of humor that sort of took away from what was otherwise potentially a powerful scene or powerful moment of character development. How do you feel like Léon differed? Or did it?
Well, I think you have a character like Léon who lives in the shadows, and the way that he operates, so you could almost say classy in his line of work. It works, I think, much better because of that. It's not somebody who's so much more fresh in the business or anything. But and so I think the action scenes for me always work really well. I think they're all designed really well. The biggest problem I have still is some of the minor supporting characters in these scenes. They all feel so cliche and silly that I always, that's what I end up struggling with in this film, is just the silly cliches, like the Native American character who's named Tonto, the fat man who's named Fat Man, and then you've got like the crazy DEA bad guy with the dreads who's checking out the reggae records. I mean, all of those moments take place in some of these action scenes, and they all seem a little silly to me. And it seems, and Luc Besson is really attached to this strange in this one, it seems more he's attached to kind of this his own strange perception of what he thinks America is or should be. I mean, even with Danny Aiello playing the Italian, the kind of the Godfather type of character sitting in the back of the restaurant and everything. I mean, all of it seems so outsider perspective of what we think all of this is like in the U.S. And it bugs me a little bit.
Although, to be fair, Danny Aiello has spent most of his filmmaking career sitting in some sort of an Italian restaurant.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Spike Lee's done it.
Right.
Who hasn't?
I'm going to go watch Godfather 2 and Hudson Hawk, and, we'll just see. All right.
Exactly. But no, it's, so you take all of that out, and I think it definitely works still. But I mean, Besson is a guy who likes his comedy. He thinks that you've got to have some of this crazy stuff in the film, and he likes having comedy. And I guess I think it's his sense of comedy just never doesn't jive with me, because I don't find his stuff funny. And it's like having a Native American named Tonto. I'm like, oh, come on, man, really?
It's funny. And maybe this is as a result of watching this movie back to back with, with Nikita. But it almost seems to me that the way he goes about casting, he puts a lot of attention into the stars, like the anchors.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of his casting of Jean Reno and Gary Oldman and Natalie Portman, and even Danny Aiello,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, they're absolutely spot on. These are incredibly complex, even as simple as Jean Reno's sort of the character of Léon is. The portrayal of this character and how he relates to the world is extremely complex, like dealing with sort of the emotional undertones of what he deals with, I think is very complex. And they ended up with this triumvirate of these three characters who deliver fantastic performances, in my view, across the board. And the rest of these characters, it almost seems like by design, are placed in their roles like very simple puzzle pieces. So they fill in these holes that are so obvious, almost by intention, that we don't get distracted by any other complexity of life that exists in this story. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so obvious to be dumb so that we kind of move on. This is the team of bad guys, and they fill holes, the holes of archetypes, or stereotypes, I should say. Not even so glamorous as being archetypes. But these stereotypes, in order to just cast them and move on. They're thugs. Everybody else in this film is a thug.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to focus on the others. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. To a certain extent, I think you're probably right. They're just, it's strangely, they're all kind of just slightly different than I would expect. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but I mean, in some cases, I think it's fine. Like, Ellen Green and Michael Badaluccio, who play Mathilda's parents, are fine. Her sister in her crazy 80s, like, spandex workout outfit, they're, I guess maybe that there's more than just, I don't know. I like them all. I just think they're all slightly off,
or they're so on that they are stereotypes. I mean, they're that's why we find them absurd.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I think it's a little bit sad, especially when you have this, a character like Michael Badaluccio, who I think is a terrific actor. And granted, this was years earlier in his career, but I think he is a terrific actor, and he's sort of underused in complex roles, which is too bad.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, let's talk about Natalie Portman.
Yeah, 11 years old when she was cast in the part, 12 years old in the role. And, I think she does a great job. She feels like a kid. She has kind of the sensibilities of a kid, but she has kind of that almost a world weariness of somebody who's grown up with a dad who hangs out with, these drug dealing types, and who is not, not nice and abusive, and is just on the wrong side of the law. She captures all of that really well, I think. Yeah,
I really I agree with that. I think it's interesting when you see somebody like this, and I kind of put her in that same category as Haley Joel Osment. These kids who have the ability to portray something that is so these undercurrents, these emotional undercurrents that are so real, without looking kind of absurd and caricaturish. I did not. In watching her, I did not feel like she was a child actor, and that obviously is the point. I felt like she was somebody who had really been forced to grow up way, way, way too fast.
Well, and then you see a scene like the one where she finally she comes into the bathroom, thinking she's going to confront Stansfield, Gary Oldman's character, and he sneaks up behind her, and you've got that amazing confrontation between the two of them, where you see this kid who thinks she's so tough, who thinks she's this trained hitman who's learned from the best, all this sort of stuff, and but you see that childness totally like break down as she's confronted by real evil. And right. I find that scene and her performance in that scene just really powerful, as she realizes that she really has no idea what she's doing, or doesn't know how to handle this sort of thing.
Yeah, that's that's right, and that's and she just I think she continues the tone of that as she's confronted by, first of all, this sort of horrifying Gary Oldman, and into as they're laying out all the guns and she had in the bag on the table, and she just realizes she's totally out of her league. And I think she just crushes it. She really does.
And not just those scenes, but also I think I found it much more fascinating this time, and it's still disturbing, but I found it less disturbing because I could see like the love and the attachment she ends up feeling for Léon, and to the point where she wants to be his lover and just all this stuff, and she's preparing herself for him to be her first, all this sort of stuff, which is so disturbing coming from a 12-year-old talking about this much, much, much older man. But when you see what she's gone through and the emotional devastation that's been wrought upon her, and this one person who's kind to her and helps her, it's a much more interesting portrayal of this man dealing with this child who doesn't understand the emotions that she's feeling and is totally misplacing them into this love relationship. And it's really fascinating. And I think she does that all really well, even up to the Russian roulette scene and everything. I mean, the way she carries all of that, I think, is really powerful and speaks volumes for where she's ended up now.
Well, that gets to my next thought on this film, which is the frustration between the extended version, the long version, and the director's cut. Because I think when you watch the director's cut, you are left with a decidedly different feel about what this movie is about.
Now, when you say the director's cut, you mean the
theatrical cut,
the short version?
The short version. Okay, sorry.
Sure, yeah.
I'm trying to stay with Luke.
That's right. Dude,
staying with Luke. So here's the thing. So we had the original theatrical cut, and it cuts out, a series of scenes that I think really direct the flow of the Léon-Mathilda relationship in a kind of a special way. That illustrates that this movie may not, in fact, be about this sort of a protege cleaner, but really a love story. More than anything else, it is a love story about a very advanced young girl and a very simple older man. And the fact that the two of them, their sort of spirits somehow meet in the middle. And so when he gets shot at the end and she is running down the street at the end carrying his plant, carrying this last little piece of him, you feel the loss not just of a mentor, but of a kind of emotional lover. That these two souls sort of came together in a really weird place in a really weird time, and it ends up being sort of hurtful to watch them ripped apart in such a violent way.
Yeah.
Is that horrible?
No, I think that's true. It's I think you're right. I mean, 24 minutes is what was cut, and it's kind of sad because this shorter version that he calls the director's cut, it just tested really, the longer version tested really poorly before the film came out because people had a really hard time dealing with this odd relationship between this older man and this 12-year-old girl, and they felt uncomfortable. And so that's why he calls the shorter version of the director's cut, because he wanted to make it something that was palatable to everybody. However, when you look at it, the longer version, and you see this relationship, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's this spiritual connection between the two, which, it is horribly awkward between their ages. But when you look at it not as kind of an intimate love story, but kind of just this platonic, almost daughter, almost sibling. I mean, there's a lot of different elements to their relationship, and just the way that they attach. You're right. She's much wiser. He's much more simple, and they do find this halfway point where they connect. And it's, I think you're right. I think it is a love story as much as anything else.
I think it really is. But the original, or the sort of the director's cut, it's just not so much. They don't. I really think, that it changes what this movie is about. And I think, there were a number of. Well, I don't know. I think the LA response, or maybe it's not just the LA response, the American response to a movie like this, particularly at the time, maybe we just weren't ready for something quite like this.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I mean, I don't know what sort of audiences are running out to watch this now. But like we said last week, Besson definitely has his cult following. People really love his films, and they don't think it's a wide audience sort of story, though. I can't imagine my in-laws watching this and liking it. I think they would go more of the creeped out route.
Right. Well, it's a complex film, but I would say, as you look at the sort of sequences that were cut, right, and check me on this because I'm sure I've forgotten. I know that there's a lot of sort of montagey stuff around cleaning, right, around the training of Mathilda as she learns many ropes. But we don't. There isn't as much of that as there is the growing up bit, and I think one of the most interesting sequences when Mathilda, when there is a sequence in the original where she says, I think I'm in love with you, or I think I'm falling in love with you, and he spits up his milk. That's right. the famous Reno spit take.
Right.
And so that sort of takes it to one level, and he sort of turns her down. He rebuffs her. But in the long version, Mathilda asks Léon to be her lover, and he refuses. But he refuses saying, I wouldn't be a very good lover.
Right.
Not because it's wrong, but because you get this feeling that he's responding out of shame and inexperience. And that, I think, is sort of pivotal in their character, in each of their characters, that she would be mature enough to ask a question in that way, and that he would be immature enough to respond in the way he responds, I think is highly illustrative of the relationship that Besson created here. And I think it's really magical.
It is very unique. You don't see this in this sort of relationship in many films. It's really a very interesting relationship. And I think it's done as delicately as it needs to be, but as honestly as it should be, and I think it's done really well.
It's done really well to the tune of two really damaged people. That's what we sort of have to keep in mind. This is not a normal relationship in a normal place in a normal time. It takes place sort of in this space of damage, and the portrayal is the important part, not the reflection on how we necessarily feel about it.
Right.
So, all right. Now, is Gary Oldman the best villain in cinema history? Go.
Well, he's up there. His character, Norman Stansfield, has made so many best villains lists. Total Film, Virgin Media, MSN Movies, Empire Magazine. Like, everybody has him as one of the worst baddies or best baddies, however you want to term it. But yeah, he's over the top. He is, I found something somewhere that would be so great to just read what they said of him. I can't find it right now, but he does it so well. And in every way, he is as we've said, the complete opposite of what is going on with Léon's character. And it's clear he enjoys it. I mean, Gary Oldman plays it to a T. I mean, and he has a great time doing it.
He certainly does. There is this, I don't know, you almost get this feeling that just as much as Jean Reno sort of sets the stage for a new generation of kind of the silent anti-hero hitman do-gooder, what we see with Oldman's portrayal is just this series of fantastic spin-off kind of villains that come from him, all the way to, I think I've seen some great discussion of Heath Ledger pulling Stansfield for the Joker. And when you look at the sort of character DNA that comes from the portrayal of Stansfield, it's a fascinating sort of tree that kind of blooms out of this portrayal. He's just insane. And because of Gary Oldman's strength as an actor, as a performer, he is so believably insane. Yeah. Not just this guy sort of playing on screen. He's sweaty and nasty and horrible. He delivers that single word with such kind of campy intensity when he screams everyone at the end of that movie. I think that's just it's really appropriately shocking.
Yeah, and we know Sarmento's a fan, and it's a huge internet meme. I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah. It's really funny how that has but yeah, he's so, and it's not just how evil he is or all that stuff, but also just the quirky things that he does that just makes him creep you out all the more. Like when he chews down on those pills in whatever way he's doing it, that is just so strange, the way he curls his head up, and then it's almost like he's cracking his own neck while he bites down on the pill. And I don't fully understand what he's really trying to accomplish. Downright creepy.
Yes, downright creepy. I think he is. I think he's fantastic, and it's interesting to look at his, his work with Besson, and I'll be very interested to see how his sort of maniacal character, fits in the film we're talking about next week, as we move into The Fifth Element, where he also plays craziness. Maybe not to quite the sort of evil mania, but he is he is also insane.
That he is. I think he's got more interesting facial hair in that one, as I recall.
I'm very much looking forward to this movie. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have going on with this movie? It actually did pretty darn well.
It did. I see that the production budget was $16 million. I see domestically it made a little over $19 million, and internationally about $26 million. So worldwide, a little over $45 million. So yeah, it did well enough to keep everyone happy.
Keep everyone happy. That's the truth.
What's interesting that I read about this is after. Actually, I'm not quite sure what Besson did right before Léon, but while he was gearing up to do The Fifth Element, actually, he ended up having a problem with Bruce Willis's schedule, and I guess it would have been right after Nikita. Actually, he was starting to prep The Fifth Element, ran into an issue with Bruce Willis's schedule, and had to postpone it for a little while. And so what he did is according to this, he took 30 days. He cranked out the script for Léon, went and shot it in about 90 days, got the movie cranked out and released and everything. And then he was able to move into The Fifth Element afterward. So this was almost just like a filler material that he came up with on his way to get The Fifth Element made.
That's really funny. Yeah, there are. So he did that, and he also did he produced the Gary Oldman film Nil by Mouth,
right?
And that came out, I believe, the same year. But that was also in between Léon and the Fifth Element, along with let's see what else he did. Cold Moon, which he produced, and immediately after Nikita, and Atlantis, the documentary, which I didn't even know he did. But as you can imagine, Eric Serra did the music.
Of course. Eric Serra. Again, the music doesn't work at all. And then the Sting song kicks in right at the end, which sounded awfully like Eric Serra's music. And I'm like, did Eric Serra just pull from the Sting music, or was Sting listening to Eric? What was going on here? But the song, at least, it redeemed it a little bit for me.
It did, although it was a little bit. I mean, Okay, what's the name of the song?
Something of my heart. That's not the.
That's just the something of my heart. What? Oh, come on. This is terrible. Sting of my heart. The shape of my heart.
There you go.
So the shape of my heart. I think that was that was actually the Sting fans actually know that song as it comes from the Eric Serra years of the Sting catalog.
I went from watching Léon to I'm not sure if I just needed more Eric Serra in my life or what, but I put on GoldenEye because I'm like, was the music really that bad in a James Bond movie? And sure enough, it really was. It was truly horrid. I was like, man, he really figured out a way to screw up what shouldn't have been bad.
You know, I would task you with going back and watching The Big Blue. Have you done this recently?
No, I have not.
Of course.
But to listen to more wonderful gems from Eric Serra,
Yes.
or to
yes, because I'll be darned. I watch this movie and I think to myself, I already don't like Eric Serra, and yet in this movie, paired with like this sort of undersea kind of, I'm on a boat kind of a French feeling. There is some of it, more of his sort of song stylings of Eric Serra work in The Big Blue than in any other film that I have seen in which he does a score. That was the movie that was like made for him. And I'm not saying he hit a home run with that one. I'm just saying it was better. You don't buy it?
Sure. Why not?
All right. So this was a great film. What do you have to close it out? I got nothing else to say. I do have something else to say. I really like this movie. This movie is an anchor for why I wanted to do a Luc Besson series, and I'm glad we did Nikita. I feel like it builds into where to this film where I feel like more is working than isn't, and I think it's absolutely a great film to have on your movies we like list.
You know, I am glad I went back and watched this again, because I was, for some reason, I was thinking I didn't like this that much. I liked it a lot more than I remembered, and so I'm definitely glad I went and watched it again. It is a really good movie. It still has some quirky Besson-isms, but still I do find it pretty good. Oh, the fun little bit of trivia I was going to throw out, which I don't know if it's really that much trivia because it's kind of obvious in the film, but I thought it was a nod to cinema and to Hitchcock that when Léon goes and checks in at the hotel, he checks in under the name MacGuffin.
Ah, yes. That I'm glad you brought that up, and I didn't note that until Mathilda sells him out and says he's my lover to the innkeeper.
Right.
And he knocks on the door. It says, Mr. MacGuffin.
Right.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
It's a great little moment. So
next week we are wrapping up our brief look at Luc Besson with The Fifth Element, 1997. Science fiction, full-on science fiction. No more of this crime drama stuff. We're moving into full sci-fi in space, and we're going to see if Luc Besson can pull off sci-fi.
Can we call it the sci-fi comedy stylings of Luc Besson?
Yes, we can. These are the sci-fi comic stylings of Luc Besson, and starring Bruce Willis, Gary Oldman, and Mila. And actually, we can't forget. I know. This is the one redeeming factor of this film for you, among what I'm sure will be a couple of others. Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker's in this film. I know you're really looking forward to that. Right?
You know, if I can at least use him to bring up Silver Linings Playbook, then there you go.
Corbin Dallas! Corbin Dallas!
Oh, it's just like
wait.
Fingernails on a chalkboard.
All right. This is it's been, as always, this has been a real slice.
Yes, it has been a slice of something.
Good night, Andrew.
Hasta la vista.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.